Lena Reyes set up her stall at the Montgomery Falls Saturday Farmers Market long before the morning sun burned the fog off the river. She liked being first. The empty rows of pop-up tents reminded her of blank chocolate molds waiting for flavor and color. She unfolded a tablecloth printed with tiny cacao pods, lined up trays of jewel-like bonbons, and with a flourish placed a single copper tin in the exact center. The tin held her newest creation, a spiced truffle inspired by ancient Mesoamerican drinking chocolate, dark cacao blended with ancho, cinnamon, masa flour, and a whisper of orange blossom honey. By 9 o'clock, the aisles bustled with regulars carrying tote bags of radishes and sourdough. Lena's mother, Marisol, who sold heirloom beans 2 stalls down, waved approval at the steady line in front of the chocolates. But Lena's eyes kept skimming the crowd for one particular customer, Dr. Oliver Brooks, the town's unofficial historian and an enthusiastic cacao snob. He'd been emailing her all week about a curiosity he wanted to show her, and Lena's curiosity, in turn, had grown feverish. At 10:15 he appeared, weaving through shoppers like a flamingo among ducks, tall, tweedy, balancing a reusable mug. A leather portfolio slung under one arm bulged with papers. He adjusted his spectacles, leaned conspiratorially across Lena's table, and without greeting said, "I've found something extraordinary in the museum archives. You'll want to see it before the board locks it away." "Good morning to you, too," Lena teased, handing him a sample of her new truffle atop a waxed paper square. "Tell me what you think of this while I wrap your usual order." Dr. Brooks obliged, popping the bite-sized orb into his mouth. His shaggy eyebrows arched with delight as fiery chili met bittersweet cacao. Remarkable, like stepping into the temple of the sun. "High praise," Lena laughed. While she tucked 6 assorted bonbons into a craft box, Brooks withdrew a fragile sheet of bark paper covered in brownish glyphs. "It's an Aztec codex fragment. 16th century, we think. Look at the central symbol." He pointed to an eye-shaped glyph with radiating lines and a spiral tongue. Lena leaned closer. Years of tempering chocolate had taught her to see subtle patterns, the haze that meant unstable crystals, the sheen that meant perfection. The glyph's lines were crisp, sure. "Beautiful," she said. "What does it mean?" "That's the puzzle." Brooks grinned. "The translation eludes every scholar we've asked, but I suspect it relates to cacao rituals. And you, my dear chocolatier, are our resident cacao whisperer." Lena flushed with equal parts pride and doubt. "I can try, but—" Brooks's grin faltered. He coughed once, then again, harsher. His hand flew to his throat. The remaining shoppers in line stepped back as a mottled redness spread from his jaw to his temples. Lena rounded the table, catching him just as his knees buckled. "Call 911, she shouted. Someone obeyed. Brooks gasped, eyes bulging. Lena's mind raced. Was he choking? Allergic? She'd listed every ingredient on her chalkboard. Chili peppers, cacao, honey. Nothing unusual for him. She tried the Heimlich, but no obstruction surfaced. Brooks's breaths turned wheezy, then stopped. Paramedics arrived within minutes, administering epinephrine and oxygen, loading him onto a gurney. The portfolio dropped in the scramble, scattering codex sheets across the concrete. Lena scooped them up before they blew away, slid them back into their folder, and found herself clutching it as the ambulance sped off. Shaken, she closed her stall early, handing leftover samples to neighboring vendors. The copper tin of spiced truffles she sealed and carried home, heart pounding, mind replaying Brooks's collapse. Had she poisoned him? When the guilt became unbearable, she drove to the hospital. A nurse updated her. Anaphylactic shock, cause unknown. Brooks was in stable but guarded condition. Lena left her number and the truffle ingredient list, then walked to the parking lot in numb silence. At home, she set the portfolio on her kitchen table. Part of her wanted to leave it for the museum, but another part, the part that dreamt in swirling ganache, needed to see the glyph again. She gently unfolded the bark sheet. The spiral tongue and radiating lines seemed to shimmer under her lamp. If a hidden meaning lay inside, perhaps deciphering it could help explain what happened. She photographed the glyph, emailed the image to herself, then opened her grandmother's old notebook of Nahuatl phrases, a relic from family stories about distant ancestors in Oaxaca. Day slipped into night. Lena brewed cacao husk tea to stay awake, alternately studying the glyph and browsing academic articles. Threads formed, spirals often symbolized speech or breath, eyes perception or sun. Radiating lines suggested heat, chili, or sacred fire. She sketched possibilities until her page looked like a mind map labyrinth. Finally, exhaustion forced her to bed. She half dreamed of stepping through a stone doorway into a chamber lit by flickering torches. Dr. Brooks lay on a slab, eyes closed, while a golden cacao pod hovered above his chest, beating like a heart. The eye glyph painted on the pod blinked, and its spiral tongue unfurled into smoky tendrils that wrapped around Lena's wrists. She woke with a gasp, moonlight pooling across the floor. The next morning, her phone buzzed. Unknown caller. She answered, expecting the hospital. Instead, a woman's clipped voice said, "Ms. Reyes, this is Amelia Kraft, curator for the Montgomery Historical Museum. I believe you have materials belonging to us." Lena explained the rush of yesterday's events and promised to return the portfolio as soon as she checked on Dr. Brooks. Kraft's tone softened only marginally. "Very well, but the codex is extremely fragile and of great value. Please bring it directly to me today." After breakfast, Lena tidied herself, packed the portfolio, and headed back to County General. In the ICU waiting area, she found Brooks awake, propped against pillows, cheeks still pale under stubble. He brightened at her approach. "You're alive," Lena said, tears threatening. "Thanks to you, I understand," he croaked. "They said you kept me breathing. They said it was anaphylaxis, but you're not allergic to chili." "Never had a problem," he frowned. "They want to run more tests." Lena whispered, "Could it be related to the codex?" Brooks's eyes widened. "Possibly. Listen carefully." He gestured her closer. "After I tasted the truffle, I felt a searing heat in my chest. Not pain, power, as though something ancient awakened. I saw a vision, the sun swallowing itself." Lena felt goosebumps raise along her forearms. She showed him her phone photo of the glyph. "I've been trying to translate. I think the spiral tongue might represent breath or life force. Maybe the glyph is a warning about consumption?" "A binding," Brooks murmured, picking at the IV tape. "Perhaps certain spices activate the symbol's power. Cocoa, chili, maize. You combined them exactly." "Coincidence," Lena said, though her stomach knotted. "The codex may hold antidotes. You should finish translating. The museum board won't prioritize speed." A nurse entered, ending their conspiratorial huddle. Lena promised to return. On her way out, she called her mother. Marisol listened, then said in Spanish, "Your bisabuela used cacao, chili, and corn in ceremonial drinks. She warned of mixing sacred proportions unless properly blessed." Lena almost laughed. folk tales in the face of modern medicine, but the hospital's beeping machines hadn't saved Brooks. Adrenaline shots had. At the museum, curator Kraft received the portfolio with a glare. Lena asked for scanning copies to continue translation, but Kraft refused. The fragment is undergoing conservation. The less it's handled, the better. Frustrated yet unwilling to argue, Lena left, but an idea sparked. She still had her phone photo. It didn't capture the entire sheet, but maybe enough. Back at home, she enlarged the image, tracing each line onto parchment paper. She compared the glyph to others in online databases, cross-referenced Nahuatl dictionaries, and noticed something. The spiral tongue ended not in a point, but in a tiny square cluster of dots. 4 dots, a number sacred to Tanatia, sun god. 4 breaths, 4 ingredients, or 4 hours. Brooks had collapsed roughly 4 minutes after tasting the truffle. 4 minutes, not hours. A measurement unit, perhaps. While puzzling, she absent-mindedly nibbled a leftover truffle. Heat bloomed across her palate, delicious, then sunk deeper, radiating warmth through her chest. She froze. Was she repeating Brooks's mistake? Her pulse quickened. She set a timer. If symptoms started, she'd note the minute. 1 minute passed. 2. At 3, a tingle brushed her scalp. Vision sharpened. She saw her kitchen's colours intensify, the air vibrating with faint hums. At 4 minutes exactly, a wave of vertigo struck. She grabbed the counter. A voice, not sound but sensation, whispered inside her skull. Return what was taken. Images flooded, a jungle clearing, stone altar, obsidian blade slicing a cacao pod, dark seeds spilling like blood. The sun overhead turned black, rimmed with fire. Then, as quickly as it came, the vision faded. Lena's knees weakened, but she remained conscious. She exhaled shakily. Her timer showed 4.5 minutes. She called Brooks's room, leaving a voicemail describing the experience. Afraid yet determined, she returned to her notes. If the vision demanded something returned, what had been taken? The codex? A relic? Or knowledge itself? She zoomed into the glyph's background, noticing faint scratch marks forming what looked like a map. 3 mountains and a river, matching Montgomery Falls vicinity. The central mountain bore a tiny cacao pod icon. Could an artifact lie hidden nearby? Her phone rang. Brooks. His voice was hoarse but urgent. Lena, I had another episode, weaker this time. The glyph's activating through us. The docs think it's a spice allergy, but we know better. I saw a map in the glyph, she said. It points near our town. An Aztec artifact in upstate New York. Brooks chuckled painfully. Unless Europeans brought spoils north along trade routes. Some friar could have hidden it centuries ago. If we find the artifact, maybe we can appease whatever force is draining us. Lena hesitated. You're hospitalized. I'm feeling stronger now that the drug's cleared. They may discharge me tomorrow. Start scouting. I'll direct from bed. So began their strange partnership. Historian and chocolatier, decoding a mystical scavenger hunt via speakerphone. Lena pulled county topographic maps, overlaying them with her traced drawing. The 3 mountains aligned with the Tri-Peak Ridge outside town. Between them flowed Millstone Creek, feeding the falls. The cacao pod icon sat where an abandoned Jesuit mission once stood. Saturday evening, Lena packed a thermos of water, flashlight, and first aid kit. Before leaving, she called her mother, who insisted on accompanying her. Marisol arrived wearing hiking boots and carrying a pouch of sage agave thread and a clay whistle shaped like a jaguar. Lena didn't question it. They reached the trailhead by twilight. As crickets chirped, Marisol blew the whistle, its eerie moan rolling through the pines. For protection, she said. Half a mile in, they found moss-covered stone foundations, the old mission. Weeds swayed between collapsed adobe walls. Lena's phone battery dipped to 20%, but Brooks guided them via patchy signal. Look for a sun motif, perhaps on a cornerstone. Marisol's flashlight beam swept across lichen until it illuminated a carved sun disk on a fallen lintel. Centered within was the same eye glyph. Lena knelt, heart hammering, and pressed the spiral tongue. With a gritty crunch, a cavity opened, revealing a clay vessel sealed with pitch. Hands trembling, Lena lifted it out. The vessel's lid bore 4 embossed dots. She pried it open. Inside lay dried cacao beans, shriveled but intact, and a rolled parchment. She unrolled it, a prayer written in Nahuatl and Latin. Marisol translated bits aloud. Sun heart offering, sustain breath of world, return to earth by consuming 4 seeds in sacred fire. 4 seeds, 4 breaths, 4 minutes. Lena's vision prickled. She understood. The glyph demanded ceremonial consumption, and burning of these beans to complete a cycle interrupted centuries ago, likely when missionaries stole them. Instead of burning, they hid them, trapping the ritual's power. But we already consumed the truffles, Lena said. Not these beans, Marisol replied. We must finish the ritual properly. They built a small fire in a rusted mission brazier. Marisol ground 4 beans with a stone pestle, added a pinch of chili from Lena's pocket spice tin, mixing with water from the thermos until it formed a paste. She smeared it onto a shard of pottery and placed it at the flame's heart. Smoke spiraled upward, smelling of earth and chocolate. Lena and Marisol inhaled, chanting the prayer's words. At 4 minutes, the smoke thickened, coalescing into a glowing orb that drifted skyward and vanished among the stars. A hush fell. Crickets resumed. Lena felt lighter, as though a weight lifted from her lungs. Brooks's voice crackled through the phone, although she hadn't called. The pressure's gone, he said. My monitor just normalized. It's done, Lena whispered. Back at the hospital the next morning, Brooks greeted her with color in his cheeks. Doctors marveled at his rapid recovery. He insisted on discharging himself, citing miraculous results. Lena, Marisol, and Brooks convened in the cafeteria, sharing pan dulce and black coffee while recounting the night's events. Brooks recorded every detail in a leather journal. What will you tell the museum? Lena asked. The truth, Brooks said, minus supernatural flourishes. We'll say we discovered a Jesuit cache containing cacao relics tied to indigenous ritual, returned appropriately under cultural consultation. He winked. Curator Kraft, upon hearing the story, demanded custody of the vessel. Brooks negotiated. The cacao beans, having been burned, existed only in ashes. The vessel he loaned to the museum under condition of shared research. Kraft reluctantly agreed. A week later, Lena reopened her farmer's market stall. Word of Brooks's collapse and resurrection buzzed through town, but official explanations labeled it an allergic reaction resolved. Still, customers eyed the spiced truffles with a mix of intrigue and fear. Lena added a disclaimer. Contains chili, honey, maize, and history. She also adjusted the recipe, substituting guajillo for ancho and omitting the orange blossom honey. Ritual complete, power dormant, she still respected the beans' memory. Brooks visited, walking cane-free, and purchased a dozen assorted chocolates. No visions this time, I hope, Lena joked. Just bliss, he said, savouring a rose saffron bonbon. He handed her a small package, a framed print of the eye glyph reproduced from the codex. For your shop wall, to remind you that knowledge can be sweet and dangerous. Lena hung it behind her table. When sunlight slipped through the market awning, the glass reflected against polished truffle domes, glinting like miniature suns. She smiled, thinking of the hidden histories swirling in every bite. That afternoon, Marisol stopped by with fresh pomegranates. She glanced at the glyph, then at her daughter. "The old stories live," she said. "Yes," Lena replied, offering her a new cardamom fig truffle. "And they taste better than ever." Montgomery Falls resumed its slow rhythm, river churning, leaves turning. Yet beneath the ordinary bustle, Lena sensed subtle shifts. Customers lingered longer at her stall, asking about cacao's origins. School kids sketched Aztec symbols for art projects. The museum scheduled a lecture series on indigenous foodways. She and Brooks co-taught the first session, weaving history with flavor, ceremony with confection. During Q&A, a boy asked whether more undiscovered glyphs lay waiting. Brooks raised an eyebrow at Lena. She answered, "History is like chocolate, layers of secret filling. There's always something new to unlock, if you have the right palate." Audience applauded, and Lena felt warmth bloom in her chest. Not a curse, but purpose. The ancient beans had met their fire, their breath released. She, too, had found her path, melding craft and culture, honoring stories while forging new ones. After the lecture, she and Brooks walked past the museum garden. Evening light dappled the leaves, and the air smelled faintly of cinnamon from a nearby cafe. Brooks said, "Do you ever wonder why we were chosen?" Lena considered. Maybe we weren't chosen. Maybe we just listened when history whispered. Brooks smiled, adjusting his spectacles. "In that case, keep listening, Chocolatier. The world could use more interpreters fluent in flavor." They parted at the gate. Lena headed home, pockets dusted with cocoa, imagination brimming. Night settled, but her kitchen lights glowed late. New recipes demanded birth: blue corn truffles for the 4 directions, hibiscus caramels echoing heart's blood, smoked sea salt bark saluting volcanic origins. As tempered chocolate cooled to a mirror finish, Lena glanced at the framed glyph. Its spiral tongue seemed placid now, lines content. She whispered a quiet thanks in Nahuatl, Tlacapili, precious thing, and snapped the set chocolate into crisp bars. Outside, the river murmured, a steady pulse of time. Inside, Lena Reyes, farmer's market chocolatier and accidental decoder of Aztec symbols, prepared to greet another dawn, ready to taste whatever mysteries it brought.